Hi, this is Dalton Rakestraw coming to you from the IE of California with the latest court reporter. I am a former World Horseshoe Pitching Champion and a 5-time state champion. I have served on the National Horseshoe Pitchers Association Board from 2019 to 2022. I have seen and heard a lot. I have compiled a list of hot topics and created what this podcast is now called The Court Reporter. All things horseshoe pitching, from gameplay to rule changes and violations to interviews with the greats. Everything you want to see and hear, all coming at you in this next podcast for your enjoyment. Welcome everyone to today's episode of The Court Reporter. Today we're going to be talking about IT and setup at the NHPA World Tournament. Today I have a very special guest with us on the podcast. Today it's NHPA's 5th Vice President, Josh Olson from Ferndale, Minnesota. Josh comes to us with 10 years of experience in the IT field. Josh has won multi-Minnesota state championships. He's been a world championship qualifier, and he's here today to tell us about everything. A veteran horseshoe pitcher. I've played Josh several times, usually on the losing side of things, but today, we will be enjoying some good horseshoe chat, as he says it. Who knows? Josh, welcome.
Hey, Dalton. Thanks for having me.
Hey, welcome. So, Josh, World Tournament IT setup. So let's take our listeners back a little bit. What actually got you interested in doing IT? Not necessarily for horseshoe pitching, but what actually got you interested in doing all this?
Interested just in IT in general. It probably had to take you back to, growing up once, the wireless internet and Wi-Fi was beginning to become, big in the household, all across the, world. Everybody has an iPad or an iPod Touch. Smartphones are just starting to come out. Laptops were a thing, setting up the routers at home. Mom and dad always just kind of said, hey, look, what do you think about this? Let's see if we can get this going. And, I was always the advocate of upgrading equipment here and there. And I kind of found a little niche in it. And I guess it turned into, a career now, which is, 10 years into the industry of IT. And I've loved every bit of it, and I'm still learning each and every day. And it, it's not every day you get to include something you do on a day-to-day basis, but also with a hobby and passion, with the World Tournament setup and just being kind of on the council as the IT director and, getting to oversee some of that kind of stuff.
That's crazy. It's funny how you don't ever know whenever, I guess, you figure out what you want to do, and then you don't realize that you actually do it for something you enjoy too. Something as simple as horseshoes is, IT and horseshoes, really. Who would have thought, 50 years ago, pencil, paper, and writing everything down on a big spreadsheet. And now here we are, present day, with electronic scoring, a stat room, and database. Oh my God. I remember when we worked in the stat room, that's all I heard. Database, stop, close the program for download or whatever it was called. But who would have thought that we're here today with all this stuff? What's going on in the horseshoe world, Josh? Tell me about what's going on a little bit. What's going on in your horseshoe world?
In my horseshoe world, right now it's kind of the, pitching wise, it's, up here in Minnesota, it's, usually there's some snow on the ground, but as I'm looking out my window right now, it's actually sunny and about 40 degrees outside with absolutely no snow in sight. Haven't been able to do much pitching outside, but we do have tournaments every month here in Minnesota. As the 5th Vice President on the NHPA Council, we do have monthly meetings that we conduct, and we stay on top of everything the best we can. I stay involved with that, as well as I am the secretary I shouldn't say the secretary. I am the secretary for the Bertha League. I'm also the league director, and at the state level here in Minnesota, I am the regional director and statistician. So we do. I wear many hats. I just can't say no, I guess, here and there. But
right, everything. If not you, then who? Kind of sort of thing, right?
yeah, it's kind of how I feel. But sometimes you got to get new blood in there, and you can't take all the glory and all the credit for everything. Even though I wouldn't say I take all the credit, but I do like being behind the scenes on everything that I try to help with.
I know that's right. But so okay, Josh. So let's get involved in this world tournament setup. I know for those who's listening today, Josh and we go back. Man, when did we meet? 2011. I think it was in Monroe, right?
2011. Yep. We didn't play against each other in the prelims, but I was lucky enough to qualify into the junior boys world championship, and you had qualified. You were like number 3. You might even been number 1 or 2 in the qualifying, and I made the number 8 spot after a playoff victory. And
oh yeah,
we got to play. It was against Steve Drozd.
Steve Drozd. Oh yeah, that's right. I remember that.
It was a good game. I can actually, I have video of it, and I can hear, I think you and maybe one other person talking, just here and there or making little comments. My brother Cody always talks about, he was sitting right next to you guys, didn't really know who you were, but watching his brother play,
Right. I remember because we had never seen you before, Josh. We didn't know who you were. We saw Steve a couple years, and we just thought, well, who the heck is this guy? And I remember it was me, Scotty, and I think Tyler, maybe a couple other people. We were all sitting there just like, oh my God, we don't want to play this guy. He's too good. He shot like 70 in the playoff or something like that.
It was a good game. Yeah, it was over 70.
But I think that's where Josh and I first met. I remember having a couple conversations beforehand, asking, should I play at the World? Because the next year you went to 40 feet, right?
Yep. The 2011 was my senior year in high school, and the following year was I turned 19, so I was moving back to 40 feet right after the state tournament that year.
Right, you did. And you came to the World in 2011 and just wrecked the whole thing up, dog. You just, I remember that year was kind of crazy. We had a potential for a 4-way playoff, and we both just choked.
Yeah. You had to win. I had to win. And we would have been a 4-way tie for that first place, and that'd have been a lot of fun, I think.
Because I think there was going to be a 2-way tie anyway, regardless. And if we beat, then we would have caused a 4-way tie, I believe. Correct. Anyway, man, those were some good glory days. But then the next year, we go to Knoxville, Tennessee, and then you just won the whole thing. You won the men's J1 or something.
I was in men's H1, and I went 14-1. I pitched about 10% over my average, and I lost to Larry Collette out of Kansas, and he still to this day reminds me of that one loss that I suffered.
I know
every time I see him.
Oh, that's crazy. Oh, geez. And then, just fast forward to present day, it just seems like somewhere it's just like picking up an old game, It's kind of crazy how things kind of just do full circle. You pitch as kids, and then now here we are in the men's division, keep on going. But as they say, I don't know what they say, honestly. All right. Talk to me about, so last year at the delegate meeting, it was kind of hinted about scoreholio. Talk to me about what is kind of going on there. What, something new for the players? Guess kind of what's the status update on that? Or what would the players see doing that, I guess?
Well, right now, it was about this time last year. There was some talk with scoreholio makers and a couple other horseshoe enthusiasts. I will say across the world. Some up in Canada. Some here and there across the United States, talking about getting some like cancellation scoring features implemented into the application, which is Scoreholio. We are all pretty much familiar with it. If you follow Dave Nelson over in Southern California, every weekend he uses Scoreholio for those tournaments. They just used standard scoring. And like if you are a cornhole pitcher or player, you're gonna use Scoreholio for almost all those tournaments. So if you're familiar with that, you're more likely familiar with Scoreholio. And I was kind of helpful with Ben from Scoreholio, who uh, was the kind of the guy behind it, making sure everything was set up the right way. He had talked to a couple others like Tom Moffat from British Columbia up in Canada, and a few others that I can't remember off the top of my head. But with their help, and we made sure everything was pretty much ironed out for
Just trying
how
to
to
go
do
over the basics, I guess.
the basics. Yep,
Out.
yep, yep. And they've got it published out, and it's out right now. So if you do download Scoreholio, or if you have Scoreholio, there is a horseshoe option, and you can actually do cancellation scoring in some tournaments. It's funny we talk about Scoreholio. I haven't had much experience with it on the horseshoe side yet. I've played around with it here and there in the backyard, and where we pitch league and my home courts. But at the end of this month, here up in Minnesota, up in Becker, we're going to have a Scoreholio tournament for the first time, and we're going to see how it works, how everybody likes it, what kind of what everybody's feel of it. How with Scoreholio, it's basically going to be, we don't have to have scorekeepers. So I think that's one positive that we could see in the future.
Mm-hmm. It could eliminate some frustration for you guys with
With the
not getting
stat room, yeah.
scorekeeping, or even with the stat room. Calling out. You hear it every year at the World. What is it? We can't get this shift
Yeah.
started unless we
Right.
have every
Until we have scorekeepers.
filled. Or they scored for you, you score for them, sort of thing. So it basically could eliminate that. Then no.
Oh, 100%. You'd have an iPad or a tablet of some sort at each end of a court. So you'd have for the World Tournament, an instance, you'd have 48 tablets, and each game it would all be pre-programmed ahead of time. You'd either play in a round robin, and what's really cool about Scoreholio, you can as a player, you can follow along the tournament, and it'll give you notifications as to which court you're going to be on next. You can in real time watch all of the games that are being played in that tournament that you're in, and you can see the scores in real time. You can look at the breakdown of how many ringers each person is throwing, what their double ringer percentages, for example. I know it's something that we don't normally, keep track of in horseshoes, but it's just a feature that was set up in Scoreholio, and I think once people got used to it, it'd be cool to look at. Like a guy like Alan Francis, what do you think his percentage of double ringers would be? It'd be probably quite high.
Right. So there's more statistical features with Scoreholio then.
Yeah, it'll be about the same, features that we are accustomed to with HS Scorekeeper and HS Master when we get that breakdown sheet. The one thing that I was told at the time when we were talking about Scoreholio with Ben from Scoreholio is if there's a way we want to, have something get displayed with results, he would be able to work with us and get it done, which is great to hear. We're giving them, all the advertising with using Scoreholio, and that was, kind of a win-win, I thought.
So what's holding us back? I guess. I mean, it sounds like a great deal, but I mean, is it just another major change into the future, or I guess what's preventing it, I guess?
What's preventing it? I would
Let me
say,
re-question. What's preventing it from going live at the World Tournament? Put it that way.
I think just proof of concept within the, even just for myself, I don't have any experience with it. So
Mm.
going in as being the person that's in charge of, making sure that the tournament's running, I would not feel comfortable going in cold. That's kind of what I'm trying to gain out of this tournament I'm going to run at the end of the month. I'm going to see
Mm-hmm.
how it works, even though it's a much smaller scale. But my goal is, I definitely want to see scoreholio in the future, at more and more tournaments. I know there's a club in Missouri. I think it's Steve Brummer. He actually told me last year at the World Tournament in Michigan that he was already running tournaments with scoreholio as soon as it became available
Oh, no
because,
kidding.
scorekeeping was the number one reason. He can't get scorekeepers, so let's just use some tablets and just show everybody how to use it really quick. And
Mm-hmm.
he said that there was a few things to get around, but he figured it out, and he said let's keep using it. He said he was going to keep using it going forward. So Jefferson City, I believe, is where
Oh yeah.
Steve runs
Yep.
tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's I want to get more and more familiar with it myself, and then I'll start to talk more about it in some news lines coming up, and just hopefully push it to 2-3 years down the road. I could see it being at a world tournament perhaps.
Right. Could it be something that we did like in Cedar Rapids when we did the electronic? Maybe have one bank kind of go after it while you're having the regular tournament, or that's probably a lot, huh?
That's actually a really good idea. You could pick one group, like one class of 16 players, and get 8 tablets, set them up in that bank of courts, and just be like, all right, ladies and gentlemen, this is, we're going to have each class that's in this group of courts. We're going to have you guys be our test guinea pigs for using scoreholio at this same exact time while you're doing HS Master. It's you're going to have to still call the score to your scorekeeper who's keeping score on
Sure.
score and on HS Master and everything and scorekeeper, but at the same time you can get used to doing keeping score on the tablet. And if you forget to do it, well, that's okay too, but it'd be a good gauge to you know test it for sure. I really like that idea, Dalton. That's something that did cross my mind, but I actually kind of forgot about it. But I'm glad you re-brought that up, because now
I
maybe I'll
mean,
push for that sometime this
Scoreholio
year.
sounds like it could be the way of the future. I know. Well, let's take a break. Let's take a break really quick and come back, and we'll get back on that topic because I know there's so much more we could talk about. So, let's take a real quick break for our sponsors, and we'll come right back. Experience the Drop Forge difference with Omega Horseshoe Company. Omega's Drop Forge horseshoes are tested up to 100 times stronger than cast-made horseshoes and are backed by Omega's lifetime warranty. Score more ringers with Gordon, Legend, Competition, or Cadet horseshoes at OmegaHorseshoes.com, where quantity discounts are automatic and all orders ship free in the United States. Podcast listeners can save 10% more with coupon code Dalton. Just enter DALTON during checkout at OmegaHorseshoes.com. Omega invites you to experience the Drop Forge difference. All right, everyone, we're back. And that's right, you heard it. Omega Horseshoes has sponsored this podcast for the rest of the year. I thank Seth Ohms and the Drop Forged Experience for really getting back into this for us and backing this up. And I think this will be something great. So, Josh, we're back again. last we were talking about scoreholio, and my thinking on that is we were talking about being potential implementation of the world tournament. It sounds like this might be the new wave of electronic scorekeeping for the world tournament. No?
Oh yeah, I mean, just talking like setup wise, we wouldn't have to have 30 something computers with all the monitors that we use to display the score, the stands,
Mm-hmm.
everything like that. Just I think setup wise, we would eliminate probably a day and a half, maybe even 2 days of the IT side of setup, which would be incredible. We wouldn't have to use as much electricity for the site. We would it would require wireless internet, which most venues nowadays don't have a issue with. So yeah, I think the future's great. It looks bright with the scoreholio in it. We got to get it out there and make sure people are getting more and more familiar with it. And I'm gonna try and do my best to get it out there and get some information out there. If anybody has any um, questions about Scoreholio, you just do like a Google search of Scoreholio. There's a lot of how-to videos out there on YouTube. Facebook wise, there's tons of Scoreholio groups that if anybody is looking to run their own tournaments or if they just have general questions about how to use the app, there are plenty of Facebook groups out there that you can utilize and ask questions there. And there's so many people out there that can help out. And it doesn't even have to be somebody that just uses it for horseshoes. It
Mm-hmm.
could be just anybody that uses it for, I mean, they have pickleball scoring, they have darts, I believe, pool, you know, pretty much any kind of um, sport, like backyard sport to, you know, bar sport, I guess that you can name it. It's probably on the Scoreholio app.
Sure.
So
Sure.
so yeah.
I mean, I think one major, not major, but I think one issue people probably will have is they might have to do it on their own, but who doesn't keep their own score at most of their tournaments anyway? Like, for example, last Saturday when I Cardiff Riviera, we had to keep our own score. I think it's probably much easier to click two buttons than it is to write XX dash XX dash, pick
Right.
up the pencil, pick up the paper, write it down, then set it down, then pick, you know what I mean? I think
You know,
I think it has benefits, honestly. I think it'll be a lot better. And then, like I said, it would eliminate our issue of not having enough scorekeeping. And
scorekeepers.
honestly, it might even save money, with paying the scorekeepers too.
Yeah, that's another aspect that could come into play too. I mean, you probably could implement having a scorekeeper keep score with Scoreholio, but I would probably only like to see that if we did like a featured court setup and you just wanted the players to just strictly focus on their pitching. But at the same time, there should be really no reason why, hitting the screen a couple times, each down and back is going to be that much of a burden on you. What, in my
Mm.
opinion, anyway,
No, I
I'm
agree.
not, I can't speak for everybody else, but personally, I don't see it being an issue keeping score for myself if we were going to use Scoreholio in the future.
Sure. Now, I mean, that's Scoreholio, folks. I mean, it sounds like it might be something ready to go. I think the testing, I guess they call it beta testing, I don't know, or whatever, and figuring it out. But hey, I think that honestly, it would make it a lot easier as a player. I think I'm looking at it more from a player's aspect than from an IT standpoint because I ain't got to worry about another person out there bothering me. I ain't got to worry about another person out there trying to score, somebody crossing over, somebody coming over to pay a scorekeeper, and seeing things out of my. I think it has benefits, And isn't there a feature that it could be like if you needed a judge, you push a button and it sends an alert to a judge or something like
I
that, or so you don't have to hear judge, all them screaming.
It's possible, I'd have to check on that, but I think that is a feature that would be a really cool feature for sure.
This sounds great. And moving into more chat just in the scoreholio. I mean, is there any? Let's talk about electronic advancement. What are we seeing there? Anything besides scoreholio? I know that's a big plus, but is HS Master still going to be a big factor for the World Tournament, or are we moving into a new phase, or what kind of advancement are we seeing with electronics?
HS Master's been around for over 20 years, I believe now. It's crazy to say that. We've seen it now at the World Tournament since 2011 at the same capacity of having completely, fully, all electronic scoring and no paper scoring, starting in 2011, and we haven't looked back since. Advancement wise, there's some features that Kurt Whaley, the creator of HS Master and HS Scorekeeper, has been working on. Last year, we did implement a feature that would allow games to be updated to issue in real time after the game was sent. That was really cool. Unfortunately, we did not get to have that going for the entire World Tournament. It only worked during the World Warm-Up because of the amount of computers that we were using.
Mm-hmm.
When I did my testing initially, I did not plan for the computer I used to, the quote-unquote server to be able to handle the amount of computers once we had a full shift of 48 courts and 22, 24 computers going at the same time. And we just ran into issues after the first shift started on that Monday of the World Tournament, and I had to go back to, the tried and true old server, old reliable, as they say, and just make sure that the World Tournament is running, and we made sure that it was up and running, and we could continue and go on and not have any any more downtime that we already created right away.
Exactly.
But going back to the advancement, hopefully this year we will have that all worked out, and we'll be able to see in real time after each game is pitched. You'll be able to see the X's and O's breakdown for those of you that have went to a World Tournament. What I'm referring to is like when you see your score sheet, if you had your dead ringers, your live ringers, throughout the 40 shoes, you get to see that in real time after the game has been pitched. So that's something really cool that I'm looking forward to, hopefully getting out there.
I know during the warm-up, former Secretary Treasurer Jim Kinney called me and told me about it, and so I kind of looked it up, and it was a really neat feature. I think, it was kind of cool to see who was there, pitching, and then how they were doing, as opposed to, oh wait, where were the results? Get the result, or
Waiting for it,
dreaded email or call you get. Where are the results? The results are down, or something crazy. But working with Josh, we used to do World Tournament setup together. I think that started in 2015, I believe, or no, 20.
Topeka.
Yeah, Topeka. Yeah, we'd work in the stat room. Rob Hagman was still NHPA IT director. I think he was the fourth vice president at the time. And we'd take the last two shifts. Everybody would go home, order pizza, and well, I don't want to say that because then we were guilty as charged. No, we would, but if you have never seen, the World Tournament run as far as IT, you really don't know. You go out there and you pitch and you see computers and people clicking and sending stuff, but until you've worked in the stat room and see what's actually gone on behind the scenes and how much work it takes to get all 24 computers set up on the same server at the same time going, and then you get that one phone call, hello, stat room to Josh, game 4 on court 27 has not been received, and you go over there and the computer's offline or something. Now you're in the middle of a game and you have to wait, it brings a lot more respect for IT and stats, when you see it done behind the scenes. You know what I mean? As opposed to back in 2009 when I first started the world, pencil paper. Can you imagine doing that today? Jesus. Pencil paper, taking it in and entering the score. Oh God. I don't even know how they did that with all those people, but that just seems crazy to me that that's how it used to be,
It sure has evolved, hasn't it? I mean,
Can you imagine, like in the largest one, what was it, 1,700 people in Ontario, Canada, entering stats for 1,700 people? Oh my God! And did they have HS Master at that time? Were they doing it pencil paper, or were they using Walter Ray's program? It's kind of crazy to think. But jeepers, oh God!
I remember going to Cedar Rapids, Iowa for my first world tournament. And, Minnesota had a few officers that were vice presidents at the time, Jerry LaBrosse, and Rick Wright was the current Minnesota charter president at the time, and he was always running shifts at the world tournament. And I knew them. I didn't really know them that like I do now, but you would see them, and you're just kind of walking around. You're getting familiar with where everything's at, and you see the stat room. And I just remember there being like 5, 6, 7, maybe even more people all looking at score sheets, and they're double checking everything, and they've got the big boards on the wall, and they're putting the results on the boards like you see at the some of the tournaments back home, that don't use electronics or don't have that scrolling leaderboard or anything like that with HS Master. But just to see that, and just remembering that, how the stat room used to be compared to what it is now, we have, 2 people, keeping track of all the games that are coming in, from each group and each class, and, making sure all the games are finishing at 40 shoes, and, making sure that if there's any ties, that third day, if there's going to be that potential playoff, that third day is always a little hectic in the stat room. We got,
any
it's
potential playoffs, Josh?
right. It's everybody who's a shift director knows at the world tournament, game 3, game 4 of that last day is when we're studying those results. Like, it's like your life depends on it to make sure that we don't see any, it's a joke, but we don't want to see any playoffs, we want to get that shift underway for, the next tournament director. And, it always seems to happen. You always have 1 or 2 classes that have a playoff, which is great. It's fun to see everybody get excited for that too.
And then you look at the leaderboard and you're like, oh, there's no way. There's a snowball chance.
Right.
Because they're half a game. They need to tie, and they need to tie, and they need to lose 1. And then you get done, and it happened. You're like, what?
You go out and you watch. What? You go out and watch the guy that's you've been leading the tournament the entire 3 days, and he's up by 20. With 20 shoes to go, and you come back out there in the last 4 shoes, and he's down by 10, and he was the guy, leading it by a half a game, and now he's going to lose it, and 2 other guys just went ahead of him and caused a playoff. It's like, it's exciting, but at the same time, it's like, oh, no. Because
now you've got to go in and enter. I mean, it's not hard work, but it's just it's like an ongoing joke, as you said. Like, who's going to have the most playoffs this year? But although playoffs are fun, they can cause some statistical trouble, But it's all in good fun. But setting up for the world tournament, I when I was on the council, I would do the labors, the general setup as far as courts and stuff goes. But when we would have things done pretty much on, what was it, like Thursday night or Friday morning, mostly everything should be just about ready to go at that point. And then you guys would come in with IT and computers, walk us through okay, Josh, IT's ready to set up, walk us through, well, first let's take another break. Let's take another quick break, and then we'll come back with walking it through the world tournament setup, and then wrapping this thing up. So let's take another break real quick. The start of a 3-day weekend in Bertha for horseshoes, starting with the Bertha Open, followed by the Josh Olson Classic, with a new date and back to the original location in Bertha. Friday and Saturday, June 14th and 15th, tournament is open to the first 80 pitchers, high cash payouts, concessions on site, electronic scoring guaranteed tournament. A great warm-up before the World Tournament. Contact Josh Olson at 218-639-4641 to enter the tournament. Address for the entries is 503 Southwest Brown Street, Verndale, Minnesota 56481. Deadline to enter is June 5th. Contact Josh, $40 entry fee, and we'll see you at the Classic. Back once again, we have the one and only Josh with us talking about his Josh Olson Classic. Josh got a little tournament sponsor ad in there. You know, Josh, real quick before we hop back in, tell us a little bit more about the Classic real quick. The Josh Olson Classic, I guess.
The Josh Olson Classic. So back in, 2020 when COVID hit, we didn't have too many tournaments going on here in Minnesota for just various reasons with, gatherings with more than, 10, 15, 20 people in certain areas and stuff like that. But, up in my neck of the woods in Minnesota, we didn't have too many restrictions when it come to having outdoor events. So having a horseshoe tournament really wasn't frowned upon or anything like that. So I decided, we were having tournaments canceled left and right from these different city parks, not wanting to even chance it and risk it, which was understandable. So I decided to run a tournament, and I didn't want to call it the typical Bertha Open like we usually did. When we were running tournaments, I had canceled that tournament that year because of COVID. That was earlier in the summer. But the Josh Olson Classic kind of just happened. I was just talking with some people, and my mom and dad, who are a big part of my life and in the horseshoe community here in Bertha as well. They helped me do all the tournaments. I wouldn't be able to run tournaments without their help and support. But we decided to run a tournament, and I got some, out of state friends to come. I had a couple from Wisconsin that said that they would like to come, but couldn't make it. But then I had Matt Fuller and Austin Bailey and Cindy Clausen from Washington as well come up to Bertha, and I ran the first ever Josh Olson Classic tournament. We had a little bit of sponsor money. We played 40-point games, which was fun. We had an all 40-foot class. I had the best pitchers in Minnesota at the time come and play, and two outside competitors within Austin and Matt. That was a lot of fun, and we had a really tough 30-foot group between some of the women in Minnesota and some of the elders, along with Cindy Clausen from Washington. It just kind of snowballed from there, and it's been
kind of evolved from that, huh?
It's been evolving. Yeah, last year we had the Classic. It was the second year having it at in Genola, Minnesota, which was the city where the 1981 World Tournament was for the history fanatics in the horseshoe world. It was not at the same building, but we have a 16
arena.
It wasn't at that arena, but we have an arena in Genola that has 16 indoor courts, and we ran the Josh Olson Classic there last year and the year before, and had a lot of fun. I had Matt and Austin come back out again. I almost had Dalton coming out, but some stuff came up and he couldn't make the trip. But
I don't know what happened to him.
but it was it's been a lot of fun. This year I'm gonna run the Josh Olson Classic again in Bertha. I'm gonna run it with the same weekend in June this year as the Bertha Open. We're gonna do a double header, be a 3-day weekend of horseshoe pitching, 2 days for the Josh Olson Classic, and 1 day for the Bertha Open. So I'm really looking forward to that. The dates for that will be June, I believe. Let me look here. June. It's the third weekend, the 14th, 15th, and 16th.
Mm-hmm.
So more details for that. If anybody's interested, you can go to eShoe and look for Minnesota tournaments, and my contact information's there. I'm the tournament director. So if you're in the neighborhood or if you're looking to pitch in Minnesota, it's a guaranteed tournament. Come on out and let's have some fun.
There you go, folks. Another sounds like it'll be another blast. Hopefully you'll get some more out-of-state players. I think the next weekend is the Horseshoe Tour in Austin, Minnesota.
Yep.
So, come out for a full week and a half, hit the Classic, the Bertha Open, the Josh Olson Classic, the Josh Olson Classic, and then the Horseshoe Tour event the next weekend. Minnesota's got a lot of great things coming out of that charter this year. So stay tuned, everybody, for that. Backing up, we were talking about the setup at World Tournament. So like I was saying before, whenever I was involved, I would say, Josh, IT's ready to go. So kind of walk us through what an IT setup looks like. After that, yep, IT, come on, do what you need to do and get things going. So kind of walk us through a little bit of that.
Well, this is very important when it comes to the World Tournament. It's making sure that the stands are all set up. The monitors are placed on the stands for the scorekeeping, so the pitchers can see what the score is. And then we'd have computer stands that the laptops, the keyboards, and the mice would go on top of. When a scorekeeper is keeping score for those 2 games. That usually takes about a day and a half to do the full setup from start to finish. And then after that, we get the computers all turned on and make sure that the newest and the latest version of HS Master and Scorekeeper is loaded onto the computers. And after that, we run that World Warm-Up Tournament. That's a very important piece of the World Tournament right now, with making sure the electronics are good to go, and just making sure all the kinks are taken care of, and we don't have any issues. Knock on wood, right before the first shift starts come Monday morning.
Sure. And if you haven't played in the World Warm-Up, you're planning on one this year in Kennewick, no?
Yep, we will have it. It'll be the Saturday before competition starts. It'll be in the same courts that you're going to pitch on, for the World Tournament. This year, the World Warm-Up will be Saturday, July 27th in Kennewick, Washington, at the Toyota Center, where the World Horseshoe Tournament this year is going to be pitched.
And signups are in person. There's no pre-registration, and it's not your typical sign up. You got to wait in line a little bit. You got to accept. If you want to pitch, be there early. As they always say, don't show up on time. If you're on time, you're late. You got to sign up early and bring your $25, I believe. Or are you going up $30?
Last year I think we did 25 or 30. I can't recall off the top of my head, but we do. We pay for scorekeeping with that entry fee, and then none of it. We don't keep any of it. It just all goes back into the prize fund.
Mm-hmm.
We just break it down into the top 3 in each 6-person class. We try to simulate what a day in the World Tournament would be like. You're going to play 5 games of 40 shoes, maybe more if there's a 4-man group or less, but you're typically going to pitch that 200 to 240 shoes in that world warm up, and it's a great excuse to get used to the raised courts and help us work that clay and make sure it's all ready to go and in tip top shape.
You know that feeling, work that clay. My,
Got to work it. Yep.
that's crazy.
No better way than throwing some ringers on it.
Oh yeah, and working it up, turning it every other game, and then Sunday the practice people come in. And has there been any talks of a double warm up, a Saturday Sunday?
I with Ben Webb now being on the council, he did run a doubles event last year. I think there is some talk of having another doubles event of some sort, but if I recall, Sunday was usually just a kind of an open day for practice. Usually that Sunday right before the World Tournament starts, and it's a good day for making sure everything, your last minute stuff is all taken care of, and just getting everything ready for the big day the next morning, right away when that 5:30 is when everybody starts to line up, right before that before the World Tournament starts.
I know that's right. And to finish off our episode here, Josh, tell people what people can expect from the stat room. What goes on in the stat room? What are our players' needs from the stat room? When's a good time to visit the stat room, et cetera, et cetera?
That's a great question, Dalton. The stat room is, like you touched on earlier, it's a big part of the World Tournament, and without the stat room, we really can't have a World Tournament. If you ask me, I mean, everything is electronically ran now. We could go back to pen and paper, but that would take a lot more work, I bet. And if you think about it, that's,
oh God, no.
You're gonna have to have a scorekeeper on every court. It's hard enough to fill in half the seats, let alone find a person to fill every court. That would be tough. So the stat room is very important, and when it comes to what you can expect, a player can get their results at the end of their shift. Typically we ask that you wait after the 3 days of competition is completed, and you can get all of your games and all of your X's and O's, free of charge, at the end of day 3. But, some like to look back at how they did and critique themselves. We're all guilty of that, and we want to make sure that all the stats are correct. And, you can pay $1 or $2 for your results, and just ask the stat room nicely to print off what class you're in and what's your name, and we can usually print you out your results in just a few seconds.
Bingo. Stat room. And everybody, you pass it up, that they're you guys are responsible for the scorekeeping, making sure that we have everything. What would we do without the stat room? That it's kind of a thing that I think of now. What would happen if we didn't have that stat room? We would have 8 to 10 people still, like you said, in a room, counting score sheets, counting ringers, inputting stat. How much more difficult would it be now than as opposed to back then? With this new advancement of technology and IT. So, folks, just be patient, be mindful. Sometimes things happen, you know what I mean? And especially if you hear that scorekeeper announcement, please keep score. as a player, keep score. It's a quick $15 or whatever it is now, and it makes things go so much smoother. I know you're probably tired, you don't want to keep score. Score 2 games, have somebody else score the other 3. It makes it go a lot smoother. None of us like to hear that, like I was saying earlier, that we can't start until we have every seat filled. I'm sitting here as a player thinking, man, that's crazy. And I'm guilty of it too, I hear that sound. Well, let me just walk out of the arena real quick. I don't want to keep score, but sometimes you just have to knuckle down and do it because there's nobody, especially Josh, on the last shift,
Oh
The
yeah.
first and the last are just atrocious sometimes. Like the old world tournament style, the last week or the second week, and I would used to take the senior men's group. It was so I couldn't find anyone to keep score sometimes. And
Yeah, you're begging people to stick around to keep score, and
oh man, and then those that would do it, I appreciate them so much, but it was like pulling teeth. It's hard, but thankfully it's not pencil paper, and it's better on a computer to where it's simpler. But Josh, I thank you for being on here today. I think this gives a lot of insight to the horseshoe community, the horseshoe world on IT, and kind of where we stand and where we're going with that. And Josh, you got anything to add, or you got anything you want to tell the listeners more?
not at this time, Dalton. I do appreciate you having me on.
You bet.
It was a lot of fun, and if anybody is on the fence of signing up for the World Tournament this year, I'd say just you know it's going to be a lot of fun, like it always is, and just
Take
make sure you've got your 4 events in, and we'll hopefully see you up in Kennewick, Washington.
All right, Josh. That sounds good. Thank you for everything, and we'll see you on the next one. All right?
All right,
Take care.
thanks, Dalton.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Court Reporter. If you'd like to have a shout out or sponsor a segment, or if you have ideas or comments, please let me know at courtreporterpodcast@gmail.com. I'm Dalton Rakestraw signing off, and until next time, I wish everyone many ringers, good health, and most of all, fun on the courts. And I hope to see you in court.